All right, let's go ahead and get today's session started. Time is 3:59 p.m. We are headed right into the 4 o'clock hour. Welcome to today's session. It is the third of our workshops for the spring, and today's session is estate planning. And we have again with us Brendan Vigorito, who will be presenting today's session. Today's session will be recorded, so if you miss any part of it, or you need to come back and review more of the information, you will be able to review the recording of this as well as download the slides from today's presentation. My name is Asia Simpson. I'm your wellness and benefits consultant. You have probably seen me many times in the past, and I'm back again with this spring workshop series. I am going to go ahead and pass it over to Brendan to go ahead and present the wonderful, informative information that he has to share. And if there are any questions, if you want to save them for the end, we can certainly ask any questions that you might have. Brendan, I'm turning it over to you.
Okay, Asia, thank you again. Welcome. My name is Brendan. One of the things I'm going to recommend you do is grab a piece of paper, something to write with, because along the way, there's probably going to be some things that you want to jot down. I also have the chat box open. If you have questions along the way or you want me to repeat something, I'd be glad to do that. Just let me know via the chat, as well as also at the end of today's session. I'll be glad to stay on and take any sort of additional questions or comments that you have. But as we begin tonight's session, we talk about estate planning. A lot of times people will ask me, well, when should I begin my whole estate planning process? And my recommendation is as soon as someone begins working full time, as soon as they begin to launch into their career, that's really the time you want to begin your estate planning process. Now, along the way, there's probably going to be different changes or different amendments you're going to make along the way. But again, it's important that we begin to plan for our future, as soon as we begin working. So we'll also be talking about the ramification of your employee benefits package. Again, the biggest thing I can stress to you as far as your planning is concerned, there's basically no such thing as a one size fits all plan. That's why every decision we make, there's multiple factors that come into play. And you do have a ton of resources available to you, not only through your employee benefits package, but also through Anthem Employee Assistance Program. You're also going to have a lot of resources and a lot of choices to make, just as you begin to consider Social Security itself. So when you take all those things and you take all those different wheels and factors and put them together, you can see why, some people can get overwhelmed. But our goal, our plan, and the perspective I'm coming from tonight is to try to make this as simplified as what I can to be able to give you the tools so that you can begin to make informed choices as to what is in your best interest and also what is in the best interest of those that are going to be in your household. Now, as far as what we refer to as the pre-retirement checklist, one of the things that we want to begin to look at, and a lot of times people will say, okay, how much money will I need to replace? How much money do I need to be generating in my retirement? Now, going back years ago, we used to share with consumers, if you can generate 80% of the income that you had while you're working, you'll probably have a pretty good retirement. Now, I no longer start with that 60% again. So it used to be 60%. If you could generate that in your retirement, that was good. Today, I start at 80%. And in some cases, 80% of your income may not be the right number for you. So that's why, again, you've got to take a look at your unique set of circumstances. You've got to come up with, from your perspective, in order for you to really do the things you want to do in your retirement years, to accomplish those things that you want to accomplish, what is the right income for you? Now, when you take a look at it, again, generally speaking, most people don't need the amount of money that they had while they're working. It's going to be a lesser amount. So let's say, for example, that you decided, you know what, if I generate 80% of the money that I had while I'm working, that's going to be at a pretty good place for my retirement. Then you have to begin to take a look at and say, okay, how am I going to generate that 80%? Where's it going to come from? So you use that as a base, and then you say, okay, how much can I count on from Social Security? What is my Social Security benefit? What does that look like? And a couple other slides, I'm going to go into that in a little bit greater detail. But for our purposes now, you want to jot down, you take a look and say, okay, how much do I need? Subtract out Social Security, and there's going to become a shortfall. And that's where you then take a look and say, okay, are there any sort of retirement accounts I have? Is there a pension that I have? And then you subtract that out and then see where you stand. But in retirement, if you're going to be drawing down pensions or IRA accounts, 401ks, Roth IRAs, whatever the case may be, there's what we refer to as the 4% rule. Now, what that 4% rule says that in our retirement, we are comfortable drawing down 4% of the balance on those accounts each year. So that's how you do that rough, calculation to say, okay, you know, do I have enough money? What is it what do I need to do? Or is it something you begin to ask yourself, do you still enjoy working? Are you still healthy enough that maybe you kind of repivot yourself, reinvent yourself, make the adjustments, and maybe work part-time or on a seasonal benefit? And then the other thing, and again, the longer the period of time you have to kind of look over these issues, the more likely you're going to be able to make an informed choice. You're going to be able to make the choice that is really in your best interest. The other area, and again, you have a ton of resources available through the current employer benefits that you have. So you want to begin to take a look at that and say, okay, what are the benefits that I'm going to be able to take with me? What are the ones that are basically portable? And I also have to understand, what are the things that I may need to do? Is there additional choices I make as far as the understanding the distribution options and ramifications? Sometimes there's better way to position ourselves from a tax liability perspective that can actually be huge tax advantages to us. And then we'll also be taking a look at today, Medicare, some of the different options, as well as the different options you have from your place of employment. Are you able to carry over your health care? Again, that's also going to depend upon your age. And then we want to take a look and review all our insurance needs. Then ultimately, the place that I want to see you do is get to the place where you're able to put your whole estate plan in order. Now, as far as that retirement, income planning process is concerned, again, you have to take a look at and say, okay, what are my goals? What sort of retirement do I want to have? What are the things I want to do in my retirement? And in addition to the financial goals, there's also other goals you need to be looking at. What are the relationships that you want to develop? What are the relationships that you want to be able to invest more time in? What are the relationships that you're going to, keep going? Do you have different relationships from your place of employment that you want to keep going after you stop working? And what are you going to do about that? As far as from a financial perspective, again, take a look at how much money you're going to need. And then you want to begin to subtract out what are your monthly expenses. So if you haven't done so, one of the things I'm going to recommend you do is to track every single dollar that you're currently spending, at least for a period of 60 days, because most consumers today, we really don't do a good job of managing over our finances. And we have areas where we kind of hide things from ourselves. So, as far as your expenses are concerned, again, I want to make sure that you have a good handle on exactly what your expenses are. I want you to say, okay, how much money do I really need? What am I really spending? And what are the different choices that I have in order to reduce my expenses in my retirement. Then, as far as the income is concerned, you want to take a look again, take a look at Social Security. Again, we're going to be going into the Social Security piece in a little greater detail in a couple of slides, but we want to take a look at what are our projected benefits and at what age do we want to begin to receive those benefits. And then take a look at your pensions, any sort of retirement account that you have. And then are there other sources of income? Are there other things that you enjoy doing? One of the things I always share with people going into retirement, if there's a certain area that you have a passion for, if there's a certain area that you absolutely really enjoy doing, then maybe there's a way you can generate at least a part-time income. It doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be able to do that income, full-time and create full-time income. But a lot of times, if there's an area we have a passion for, a lot of times there's a way that we can generate at least a seasonal or part-time income. And then you also want to begin to project out what would be the unexpected expenses that you'd have down the road. So I'm a big proponent that we have in liquid savings at least a few months worth of our living expenses. So when that unexpected bump in the road of life comes our way, we have enough money already available to us to kind of get us over that hump. Now, as far as expected expenses are concerned, again, we're going to expect to have medical expenses. We're going to have expenses, for example, if we have an automobile, then automobile maintenance is definitely an expected expense. But along the way, guess what? There's sometimes these areas that we're going to refer to as unexpected expenses. So again, we have to plan for the expected, but then again, we also have to plan for the unexpected as well. Going to this next slide, we want to take a look at tax diversification. And again, basically what this means is the different types of income you have are basically going to be taxed in different ways. And so you want to understand, okay, what are the different ways that the different resources I have, what are the different ways they're going to be taxed, and basically what are the implications for that. So if you want, for example, in the future to have tax-free income, one of the best ways to do that is through a Roth 401k or a Roth 403b. Basically, what that means, whenever you put money into a Roth IRA or that Roth 401 or 403b plan, as soon the year that you put it in, your money is actually taxable going in that year. But what it does when you pull it out, you're able to pull it out tax free. You're not going to pay a tax on it later on. So for some people, you know what? That's a great choice for them to make. You also have different municipal bonds that you can purchase. You can also purchase bonds that may be basically tax free as far as income is concerned on a federal level as well as on a state level. And then, generally speaking, as a beneficiary, the cash value of life insurance policies that usually transfers tax free. Now, again, we have to put the kind of caveat on that because, again, in some cases, depending upon the circumstances, it can still be taxable. But generally speaking, for our purposes tonight, the cash value of life insurance policy that passes to the beneficiary tax free. Now, the other term to be familiar with is what we refer to as tax deferred plans. Now, tax deferred plans, the biggest way these come into place would be, for example, 401k plans, 403b plans, where basically the year that you're putting that money into those plans, it's referred to as tax deferred. You're not paying any taxes. Basically, that money goes in pre-tax dollars, and then it grows tax deferred. And then when you withdraw the money, that's when you're going to be paying the taxes. Now, most people are going to wait till they're retired before they begin to draw that money out. So in their retirement years, their income is going to be less. So that's how they minimize the tax liability. And then, certain savings bonds, you can also get them that they're tax deferred, certain annuities, traditional IRAs, simple IRAs. Again, those investments grow tax deferred. Now, the other category is basically things are just going to be taxable, and it's going to be taxable depending upon, how much income you're reporting to your particular household. So, for example, there'd be checking accounts, brokerage accounts, uh, real estate, sales, CDs, things of that nature. It's all taxable to you. Now, again, the key you want to take a look at is to say, okay, let's make sure that I have a number of different income streams coming into my household. Again, you don't want to basically have just one source of income. Again, you want to diversify. You want to have different income streams coming in. For example, Social Security. And Social Security, when it was designed, it was basically designed to be a serve as a supplement. It was never designed to be the retiree's sole source of income. Now, last year, roughly 50 to 55% of the people that retired last year, Social Security was their sole source of income. So again, we want to see Social Security. It's an important stream, but we want to make sure we have other streams as well. Now, up to 85% of your Social Security benefits may be subject to income tax. Again, it's going to depend upon your specific set of circumstances, the specific set of your specific set of circumstances and situation where you're in. Now, currently, one of the items that is being debated is whether to eliminate that and basically make Social Security income uh, basically tax free. Now, they haven't come to any sort of conclusion or direction yet, but that is something that's definitely under consideration. So, again, we'll have to see how that all plays out. Now, with your defined benefit plans and pension, again, that's going to be taxable. It's going to be considered taxable income to you. But again, you want to get with your specific plan and see, based upon your specific set of circumstances, what's going to be applicable to you. Now, the great advantage with our Social Security is built into Social Security every year is what's referred to as a cost of living adjustment, where you can take a look at your projected Social Security benefits. And then in November of every year, they go through and they calculate the cost of living, and that's going to kick in January 1st of the following year. So, for example, some years they say, okay, due to the cost of living, we're going to increase that Social Security benefit. Again, whether it's 3%, 4%, 5%, again, whatever goes on during the year, as far as how they calculate that cost of living, it's going to be included the next year. So that is a huge benefit to with Social Security. But again, your defined benefits, plans that doesn't have that cost of living adjustment factored in. Now, both include lifetime benefits, which basically means you can't outlive your benefits. So as long as you're alive, you will receive those benefits. Again, those are two huge advantages. Now, if you currently do not have that login and password with Social Security, one of the things I'm going to recommend you do is write down on that piece of paper that you have, you need to get that login and password with Social Security. And we've got the website on the screen in front of you, ssa.gov. Now, even if you're sitting here today and say, hey, you don't understand, I'm not ready to retire for a number of years. I'm not thinking about, collecting my Social Security benefit. Do I really need to get that login and password? And the answer is yes, you do. And the reason for that is our Social Security benefit is going to be calculated over the 35 highest years of our earnings. So every year that you're working, every year that you're paying taxes, the IRS is to take that information and there's to supply it to Social Security. But what happens in the real world? For whatever reason, whether there's a mistake or whether there's a glitch in the system, again, whatever the case may be, sometimes that information is not transmitted over. And I come across people every single month that they get ready to start collecting their Social Security benefit, and they've never checked their information. And all of a sudden they realize, hey, going back 15 or 20 years ago, there were years where they were working, they were paying taxes, they were paying in a Social Security, but Social Security basically has them is not making any money that year. Well, guess what? That's going to have an impact on their benefit. And unless you've got those records going back 15 or 20 years ago, you're not going to get a change. So again, so as part of our due diligence, this is something that every one of us needs to do. And again, we have to check to make sure that that information is indeed correct and accurate. The other thing I recommend you do, also you can call the people at Social Security and they'll go over the different options you have available. You have a lot of choices on how you want to receive and when you want to receive your Social Security benefits. And again, there's no such thing as a one size fits all plan. Now, a lot of times you'll hear financial planners and you'll say people, oh, wait as long as what you can because you'll get the greater, monthly amount in your check. And again, from a broad perspective, that makes perfect sense. But guess what? Everyone's situation is unique. So, for example, especially if there's a case of, where the spouses in, a particular household, for example, it may make sense that you begin to collect on one spouse's Social Security, and then all of a sudden, when you reach your full retirement age or age 70, you flip it over and begin receiving the other spouse's benefits. So again, you'll see that there's a number of different opportunities, there's a number of different choices that you want to make. Now, the other thing I'd take into consideration would be basically someone's health. I'd also take into consideration their specific financial situation. And again, if someone takes a look at their life expectancy, if someone takes a look at their health and say, you know what, I really anticipating living a very long life, well, then in most of those cases, it's going to be for your benefit to delay receiving those benefits for as long as what you can. Now you're able to start receiving benefits, but again, it would be at a reduced amount at age 62. So you have your choice. If you want, you can start receiving your benefits at age 62, or you can wait till your full retirement age. Now, your full retirement age is going to fluctuate depending upon your birth year. So, depending upon your birth year, it will be either age 66 or it'll be age 66 and 2 months. And then if you were born from 1960 on, then your full retirement age is going to be age 67. Now, if you begin to take your Social Security benefits prior to your full retirement age, then they're going to withhold benefits from your Social Security. For example, if you started receiving your Social Security benefit prior to that full retirement age, they're going to withhold $1 for every $2 that you earn once your income for that year exceeds $23,400. So you see, okay, you know what? There's definitely, additional taxes I'm going to be paying and benefits are going to be withheld. Now, the year that you turn your full retirement age, they're going to withhold $1 from every three in benefits, and that would occur. You could make up to 62,000 in that year. But then once you hit your full retirement age, once that month you turn your full retirement age, there's no limit on your earnings, and they're not going to be, those benefits are going to be withheld. So again, a lot of times that's why people will make the choice and say, okay, you know what? The soonest I'm going to grab it is going to be at my full retirement age. Now, if you delay taking your benefits, once you hit your full retirement age, for every year that you wait to begin those benefits, they're going to basically pay you an incentive of waiting. Again, if you wait, each year it's going to go up by 8% up until the age of 70. Now, there's really no benefit to waiting beyond age 70. So again, depending upon other sources of income you have, for example, you may say, okay, you know what? I can withdraw so much money out of, my pension over here. I've got a 401k over here. I can delay my Social Security till that later age. And when that happens, I'm going to be drawing down these other accounts, and then it's basically going to flip over because my Social Security is going to be higher. So I can withdraw less out of these other accounts from that perspective. So again, you see, guess what? There's a lot of different factors that are going to come into play here. So again, great resource available to you is to be able to reach right out to the people at Social Security. They will give you great counsel, but they can only counsel you as far as Social Security is concerned. Then they cannot provide counsel in other areas. It's only going to be on Social Security. So again, if you have any questions on that, if you're not quite understanding, or if again you need more clarity, again, feel free to put it right into the chat box to me. So as far as your employer benefits are concerned, again, there's a lot of different things for you to take into consideration. There's a lot of different factors that are going to come into play. And that's why, again, I want you to kind of view this is in order for you to really get the most out of your retirement, you have to really begin the process of saying, you know what? It's really not going to be possible for me to be an expert in every single area that I need the information on. But what you can be is to say, you know what? I'm going to view this basically as a team effort. So I want to have different people that are on my team that can speak to these different areas, that can give me information from these areas, and they have my best interest at heart. That way I can make an informed decision as to what's going to be in my best interest and the best interest of those in my household. So again, through your employer benefits, reach out to the people that you have working in HR, reach out to those, and again, get the information and help them, have them give you what are the different choices, what are the different options you have available to you. So again, you can make that informed choice as a consumer. So one of the things you want to take a look at is far as, what is the defined benefit plan that you have? What is the different formula they're using? And what are the specific distribution or payout options you have? Again, for most people, if they could have their income come in as dividend income, it's going to be taxed less than if they have it paid out in other areas, or if they have it paid out basically over, as term, long-term, long-term capital gains, et cetera. Again, so there's different ways to structure, the different options you have. So again, that's why you want to get with the people that know this particular area. And then other considerations to take into place would be, okay, how about a surviving spouse consideration? What does it look like? What are my different options? And again, does it make sense if I still enjoy working and I'm healthy enough to work? Is it going to be better for me to delay that retirement? So again, so that those benefits increase. And then you always want to make sure you're taking advantage of any sort of matched savings that you would have towards those contribution plans. And once you're over, a certain age, they do have the option that you can play catch up and you can put additional monies in. And again, you can do that are at huge tax advantages to you. So again, take a look. What is your specific set of circumstances and what makes the most sense to you? Now, the, the next thing we're going to be looking at is basically what we refer to as lost opportunities. So again, for example, let's say you or someone in your household had access to company stock. So it may be better from a tax perspective that you basically take that account, you basically roll it over into a brokerage account, and then you could basically have that income then come back to you as long-term capital gains, which would be at a lower income tax rate as compared to ordinary income tax rate. So again, you've got to take a look at what option is right for you. and basically what really makes sense to you. Now, again, it doesn't always make sense to use the net unrealized appreciation, but again, you know, you want to get with the people that you can trust again to give you that information. Now, for your particular company, if you had done a lot of traveling, basically, you know, those mileage points you're going to get to be able to keep, but any, you know, as far as the company will get the mileage points, but if you have frequent flyer miles, those will go with you. So as far as getting to the different health and welfare benefits, again, take a look. What are the different options you have available to you? And is your employer provide retiree health care? Is that still something that's going to be available to you? And if so, you know, how long is that available to you? There's usually certain windows, there's certain lengths of time. And then also kind of take a look at it. Again, compare the benefits. And then also today, one of the huge factors that retirees today face that retirees of yesteryears didn't face really has to relate to medical costs, medical insurance. That is a huge consideration. So again, you want to take a look. You want to begin to take a look at Medicare. You want to begin to take a look at that coverage. And then also, what sort of coverage are you looking for? Is it dental? Is it prescription drugs? And again, how is this going to play in to your, you know, to your financial situation? Again, you'll have to be prepared that guess what? You're going to have higher medical costs. And again, what are the things, what are the considerations, what are the different options you have available in order for you, again, to make that good choice as a consumer? Now, again, if you're planning to retire before age 65, again, Medicare will kick in at age 65. So you have to take a look at and say, okay, if I want to, you know, get jump on it. I want to retire before Medicare kicks in. So basically, they say, okay, to my employer sponsored benefits, what's basically going to happen? What are the different options that I have available? Is it something if I continued maybe to work part time that I could still keep my benefits? Or do I have a spouse that's still working that it may be possible for you to get on the spouse's employer plan? Or the other option is to take a look at COBRA to see, you know, what is sort of the eligibility, what are the requirements, and then also what would be the cost associated with that. So again, you want to take a look at it from numerous factors and then make that informed choice as a consumer. Now, as far as Medicare is concerned, again, it's just like Social Security. You have a number of different choices. You have a number of different options available to you. And again, I'd always recommend that you contact the people at Medicare and go over the different options you have available. So you can either call them at 800-633-4227, or you can go online. And again, you can begin to work with someone online at medicare.gov. Now, you're not automatically enrolled in Medicare at age 65. You can basically enroll in Medicare 3 years prior to turning age 65, which is something I definitely recommend you do because when you begin to enroll in Medicare, anything you do, again, with Medicare, it's not simply, oh, I just simply sign up, that's it, I get the benefits, and I'm good to go. There is a process that's involved, and things will take a little bit of time. So I'm just make a note for yourself again, 3 months prior to turning age 65. Um, if you want to start receiving Medicare, then again, you need to sign up. Now, if you are already receiving Social Security benefits prior to turning age 65, then in that case, you're automatically going to be enrolled. But unless you're receiving those benefits prior to age 65, it is not automatic. You have to do it. Now, a lot of times people refer to Medicare as basically the Medicare alphabet, and they get themselves kind of overwhelmed with the different parts. Okay, what are these different parts? What do they all mean? So I'm going to try to break it down to you in a simple way. So, for example, there's different parts. Now, original Medicare was strictly Part A and Part B. Now, currently, how things are set up, if you enroll in Medicare, Medicare Part A, which is basically the hospitalization coverage, that you can get, and that's referred to as free Medicare. There is no cost for you to enroll in Medicare Part A. That is the hospitalization. Part B is basically paying the doctors, it goes to doctors' bills, things of that nature. You have to pay for Part B. Currently, it's running about $185 a month for Part B. Now, the other thing that is kind of unique about Medicare versus the regular medical coverage you have now, there's family plans, there's plans for, spouses, etc. But when you get to Medicare, these are all individualized plans. There's no such thing as getting a plan with your spouse. And these are all individual plans. So that's one of the things, again, I just want to make sure you are aware of that. So again, Part A is free. That's hospitalization. Part B, you want Part B, you're going to need that. That's $185 a month. And then they have additional what's referred to as Medicare supplement plans. Now, those Medicare supplement plans, sometimes it's also, you've heard the term Medicare Advantage plans. And again, these are going to be state specific plans. Each state has the unique plans that they approve. So again, you take a look in the state where you're living and say, okay, what are these additional plans? What do they look like? Now, if you want those Medicare Advantage plans, that's going to fall under the category of Medicare Part C. But with most of these plans, and just about all of these plans, if you want that Medicare Advantage or that Medicare Supplement plan Part C, you have to have both Part A and Part B. So you see there's going to be an additional cost with that Part C. So again, you have to have Part A, Part B, and then you can get Part C. Now, as far as the Medicare prescription, the drug coverage is concerned, that's referred to as Part D. Now, a lot of the Medicare Advantage plans will actually have a component Part D built in those. So again, you see a lot of different options. So you've got to take a look at it and say, okay. And again, depending on the state where you live, there may be some plans that combine some of these different features that really would make the most sense for you. But again, you've got to do your due diligence. Now, as far as life insurance is concerned, again, the whole purpose of life insurance policies, again, is either to protect an asset, to protect something that you own, or to protect those that are dependent upon you for their livelihood. So when you begin to view insurance policies from that particular perspective, it's going to kind of help give you the information you need in order for you to determine what is right for you. Now, you may have, life insurance through your employer now, but then when you leave your place of employment, sometimes you're able to carry it over. You're able to convert it into a single plan, or sometimes that's going to go away. So again, these are questions I'd recommend you get with your benefits person. Kind of take a look at those different options. But in retirement, a lot of times people ask me, well, do I still need insurance? And I said, again, insurance policies can be a very good part of good, of a financial plan. So you could use it, for example, whether it's to pay off a mortgage or if there was other existing debt loads that you had, maybe a good way to kind of take care of those or to kick in provide income replacement for your loved ones. Or, for example, if you have aging parents or loved ones that need extended care, and this may be a good way to kind of hedge against some of those different things you have. And then other great advantages to a life insurance plan. It could leave an inheritance to your family members, or if you decided you wanted to give that away to charity, again, it's a good way kind of leaving a legacy. Now, as far as that group life insurance is concerned, again, you know, check with the benefits people where you're working and say, okay, what's going to happen, when I retire, when I, leave this place of employment? Is it going to reduce or is it going to simply terminate at retirement? And portable means is it possible for you to take it and basically carry it over with you once you leave that place of work? Generally speaking, if there's that option, it's basically a conversion period of 31 days where you basically have 31 days to convert that policy over. And then you want to take a look at it and say, okay, what is the cost going to be involved and what is the coverage going to look like? And again, get your specific options. So again, the key takeaway, you need to get with your employer benefits people. You need to, again, get all the information so that you can make that informed choice as a consumer. Now, a lot of times people begin to ask me questions concerning long-term care. Now, this is a more complicated insurance product. It's probably one of the more complicated insurance products that are out there available. And basically, this begins to kick in the case that you're unable basically to take care of daily living activities, that you have a difficult time in living independently and caring for yourself. So the whole idea of long-term care policies, it's to assist you, with those daily living activities. For example, bathing, dressing, things of that nature. Now, the thing about long-term care, it kind of poses that unique risk because it's basically going to cover an area that's not typically covered by the other types of, healthcare plans that you'd have in place. The drawback to long-term care plans is they're usually pretty expensive, so they're usually pricey. And so a lot of times there are better options available to the person to be able to provide them that care. For example, if someone was a homeowner, sometimes taking a look at options, for example, such as a reverse mortgage, may also be a good option that would be available. But again, you've got to gather the information based upon your specific set of circumstances and decide what choice, what option that you want to go with. Now, as far as estate planning is concerned, basically, guess what? This is something that everyone needs to do. And that's why I'm a big proponent. As soon as someone begins to work, this is the time they want to begin to plan, they want to put it into place. And again, it's the whole process by which individuals they're going to create, they're going to preserve and distribute their assets to their to their heirs, and you want to do it at the least possible financial and emotional cost. And I always share with people, and a lot of times I know that this is, again, one of those areas that a lot of times people just don't want to talk about. This is an area that people say, what, I just don't feel comfortable talking about it. I don't feel comfortable talking about it with my loved ones. But guess what? It doesn't change the need for you to still do it. And again, I can go on, I can share with you example after example where people put it off and then something happened and it made things a lot more complicated for their loved ones at a time when they were experiencing the most amount of stress that they've ever faced in their life. So again, I recommend, especially when people are healthy, this is really the time to really think about it. Again, put a plan in place. Again, if you change your mind later on, you can always amend, you can always make changes to your plan, but at least get something in place. Because again, if something was to happen to you, and again, none of us can guarantee it tomorrow, it's just going to make things a whole lot more complicated, for our loved ones, for the ones that are going to have to deal with the situation. So again, as far as the different phases of estate planning, again, it wants you to create an estate plan. Again, that helps protect those that are dependent upon you, again, in the case of an early death. And then what is going to be the best way? What is going to be in their best interest as far as the distribution is concerned? How do we go about creating that appropriate plan? Again, for those things that you own, how are you going to pass it off? and get it into the hands of your beneficiaries. Now, along the way, for example, if you were to have minor children and you had an estate set up to take care of it, there's going to be certain costs that are going to be involved keeping that and preserving that estate. So how are you going to be able to pay for that? And what are the plans? What are the things that are structured? So again, it does take some thought and takes effort to put together a great plan. Now, basically, uh, people ask, okay, if something was to happen to me, how do things basically pass on at time of death? So there's a number of different things to take into consideration. So, for example, that first one is by law. That's going to refer to, for example, if you had real estate and the way the deed was written up, it was written up with joint tenancy with rights of survivorship. That basically means when one person dies, the property then passes over to the other person. Now, they'd want to go down and provide a death certificate and basically show that to the county. So again, they could get the deed transferred over. Other ways it can pass is by tenants by the entireties, or again, if there was community property that is, joint owned. The other way that things can pass through is, for example, what's referred to as a beneficiary form. Beneficiary forms would be things such as checking account, savings account, your 401k plans, your life insurance policies, annuities. They all have basically they have life beneficiary forms, which basically means that that property is then passed over to that individual. And again, things don't have to go through probate. Whatever is on that beneficiary form, that takes precedent over what is written in a will. Now, other things could be a contract. For example, if you had a living trust set up, if you had a buy-sell agreement, again, that would be by a contract. Again, those beneficiary forms fall under that contract. Now, if someone dies without a will, it's referred to as dying intestate. So in the case like that, what's going to happen? It's basically going to be the state that's going to step in, and they're going to be the ones that's going to make that decision. Now, when someone has a will, it's basically referred to as the person passes away, you know, testate, which means it's according to their will. Again, things such as personal property, jewelry, automobiles, um, the brokerage accounts, and then things would pass over that way. So again, in depending upon the state where someone lives, some states things are more complicated, more complex, and things can also be a little slower. And on some states, things pass through fairly quickly. In other states, things do have a tendency of taking a longer period of time. There are other strategies that you can begin to take a look at as ways to basically cut down or reduce your taxable income. For example, a lifetime giving is you can basically give away a certain amount of money that can pass to your beneficiaries while you're still living that is not going to be taxable income to them. Again, the amounts are going to change from year to year as the tax laws change. So again, this may be a great way for you to basically build in as part of your estate planning process. And then you have a thing that's called irrevocable living trust, which basically removes the life insurance death benefit from your taxable estate. Then you have living revocable trust with credit shelter provision. So again, for some people, this makes sense. It's a little bit more, again, anytime we get into a trust, it's a little bit more complicated than some of the simpler ways that we do things, but you can set up a way to be able to pass those assets, but you can still remain in control of those assets while you're living. And it's basically going to be that the trust is the one that has ownership over those items. So when you pass away, the trust owns it, so it's able then to pass on the assets to those that would be in that trust. Other things you have to take a look at is income in respect of a descendant. So if you didn't pay income tax, guess what? then your heirs are going to have to. So again, that's why we use the statement, not only can you not take it with you, but guess what? You can also prevent your heirs from taking it with you. So again, things that would be taxable to your heirs would be IRAs, 401k plans, and then gains on not qualified annuities, things that would pass tax free. Again, generally speaking, life insurance policies pass on tax free, as well as any of the Roth accounts. Now, the note at the bottom of your screen, a living revocable family trust does not avoid income taxes to you nor your beneficiaries. The thing that makes sense from a tax perspective is going to be in irrevocable trust. An irrevocable trust is a little bit more complicated. Basically, what that means is once you set up an irrevocable trust, you can't change it unless you get a court order to do it. A revocable trust means that you can change things without needing a court order. So again, as we begin to kind of wrap it up today, and we want to take a look again, as you can understand, things can get pretty complicated. And for you to have a successful retirement, it's not only financial considerations you need to take into place, you need to take into, factor a lot of different a lot of different areas. Again, it's simply not going to happen by chance. The more time you have, the more informed you are, the more likely that you're going to be able to make an informed choice as a consumer.